It is a dream, actually. What it allowed me to do was a project that was this insanely ambitious. The project, of course, cost a lot more than this grant, but it allowed me to do it. I mean, if you think about the fact that I visited all 50 states, in and of itself, that's expensive. To say nothing of, like, the carpenters I paid for these boxes, and then the oil paint, and then the software packages to deal with all the photographic imagery that I took, and yeah, it was crazy. I kind of can't believe I did it, and I'm so grateful that somebody helped sponsor this.
Well, you know, one thing in looking through them, it's a part of a realization that you did visit every state, but also just how rich our country is in terms of the scenery.
Oh!
I mean, how did that impact you?
Well, that was pretty amazing to me. I mean, I grew up in New York City. My idea of nature is a pigeon. I didn't learn to drive until I was in my late 20s. So it was a very interesting experience driving around the country and seeing these things that, ironically, I could not have gotten to without a car, and yet, of course, I am polluting the environment with my car, you know, so there's some irony there. But I'm very well traveled internationally. I've been very lucky, and I was not well traveled in the US, and I'm like, this place is beautiful. Arkansas is gorgeous. Who knew?
Who knew?
I didn't know. It's beautiful. You know, for example, that was one surprise to me. So I was really kind of bowled over by how gorgeous it was, and of course, this project has a serious conceptual component. It's paired with a billboard of a commodity. So the commodity is the plastic water bottle, which is the ultimate throwaway commodity we have in this country. We've got great tap water. You know, if we were living in a place that had bad water, we should be drinking out of water bottles. But we've got great tap water. What is the problem? So, you know, we're ruining our water resources for this stuff. And if you think about going on a road trip, even in a desert, everything that you see that you think is beautiful is dependent on water. Whether it's a lake or trees, it's all about water. And we're screwed with our water supply, you know. So I was pleased to find a way to make a funny and beautiful piece that was also political. I think a lot of political work is really strong, but it can be depressing. So I wanted to make something where people can look at it and they're like, oh, what state is this? And they have this jewel-like quality, and then they're like, why is there a water bottle here? You know, so it's kind of a slow realization.
Well, and I like a little bit of the contrast between, you know, you get up close and you look at the beautiful scenery, because, you know, the closer you get, the more you're drawn into it. And then it's like, but look what we're doing to it. I love it. I mean, I like the way that the two ideas really just come together so well in terms of the way you juxtapose the size and also, you know, the way that the viewing of the actual work then is also enhanced by the contrast too. So I really think you did a great job.
Thank you so much.
Well, what's in store for the future then?
Well, one of the things that happened as a result of this project is, one, I became a better landscape painter. Actually, before this, I was not a landscape painter. So I've become a better landscape painter. And the second is I developed a profound interest in geology. I pester all of my professor colleagues in the geology department. And one of the things that I've noticed and realized is that I have traveled a lot into a lot of the countries and in the US and lived in places that are associated with the Ring of Fire, which is the Pacific Plate. And I'm fascinated by volcanoes. I lived through earthquakes when I lived in San Francisco. So I have nebulous plans for a Ring of Fire project of some kind. But my immediate plan is, as I took digital photos for this project. I found I really didn't have enough money and ice to have film for 6 weeks in my Honda Civic that had no air conditioning, you know. So I took photos I never would have taken because I wouldn't have wasted the film. So I took these interesting low visibility photographs, and one of these pieces, so I want to do a series of those, these kind of similar to those, these larger nebulous low visibility images. So it's kind of as an antidote to tiny clarity. I want to do big blurry things for a little bit. I'm tired of those teeny tiny sable brushes, man. Tired of them. I can't take it.
Just out of curiosity, was this done last?
It was one of the last things. It took me a while it was a slow realization to figure out what the object should be. And this is a pretty small painting, maybe 5 by 10 inches, and I sent it to a billboard company, and I had a billboard installer install it. So I love to see like what my little tiny marks look writ large. It's really fun. I'm like, oh, that's what all of these look like if they were bigger. Although those were not on canvas, of course, but yeah.
Well, I just wondered if there were certain parts of that were liberated by being able to go with such a large format.
Well, not really, because I wanted to make it as precision as I could.
Okay.
You know, this project really is about a level of precision, because I wanted people to say, oh, of course that's my favorite state. That seems typical. So it was really important to capture a typical image and be quite precise with it, so nobody would question that was a certain state. And that was challenging, because of course I'm not an expert on the 50 states. I did my best. I'm visual, but that's not, you know, I couldn't confuse myself with a geographer or geomorphologist or anything.
Well, and it looks like each setting gave you the opportunity to have a lot of different palettes to work with.
I did use very different palettes for each of these paintings. I had about 14 paintings going on at any one time, and a very complicated palette system to keep the colors separate, and like I had to take notes. Actually, one of these paintings I was showing this to somebody, and on the back was a little post-it note that had the notes on some of the colors that I don't typically use, like that I had to write down to remind myself, like, oh, wrong, blah, blah. It's not typical for me, but I used it for this. So I had to keep notes in order to come back, because these were not a la prima paintings. These were really done in layers. Sky, clouds, mountain, foliage, more sky. So to keep the precision. Most of my work is much faster and looser, but this project called for something quite different.
Great. Wow. Well, great effort, and I just want to congratulate you on being a part of the project. And I think that the idea really it's got to be explored further to get that.
Well, thanks.